Good morning again. So to begin, I would love to briefly go around and hear each person's name, where you are currently located, and just a sentence or two about your practice experience. And I'll start with myself. So my name is Senko, Chris Perez. I've been a resident here at Upaya for 2 years. I am a novice priest, and I've been practicing Zazen for 6 or 7 years. It's hard to figure out exactly when it began. I'm very glad to be here with all of you this morning. And Elizabeth, could you go next?
I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've been a member of the Upaya Sangha for decades, and I love coming to the instruction, even though I've been sitting for decades, because I always learn something new, and it helps me center to begin session. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And Jenny?
Hi, my name's Miyogetsu Jenny Lamson, and I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah. My practice experience, my mind did something so great recently, and I keep trying to get it to do it again. So I was just hoping this morning would jar me out of that. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for your honesty. Joseph.
Morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, good. I'm in Berlin, Germany. I became active with Upaya when COVID hit, and I've been doing practice periods ever since then. I think recently I have been struggling with Zazen, partly because I have learned to let go of trying to get somewhere. But in the process of doing that, there is now chaos. So this is why I'm here this morning, because I can't seem to, there's just chaos. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Catherine?
I'm Catherine from Maine, New England. Spring's here, and I have done this practice of sitting for a long time. I live alone. I live primarily in silence. I sleep alone. I eat alone. And as I have been in this particular retreat, while I'm comfortable with being alone, I really enjoy the small gatherings, like when Sensei Al did the discussion and I could hear where other people were seeing, how they were seeing, to broaden my perspective is especially beneficial for this practice for me. Bowing out.
Thank you, Catherine. And mountains.
My name's Ed Parsons. I'm from Tamworth, New Hampshire.
Wonderful.
Near Mount Washington. And I belong to a Zen Sangha in Conway, New Hampshire, but since the late 90s. And I first started practicing with the Upaya also with the pandemic, and find it very, very refreshing and a great perspective. I'm kind of an outdoors person, and I like Joan's connection with the outdoors and all that. And so great energy.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you all for being here. And Ed and Catherine, I grew up in Connecticut and lived in Boston for 15 years before coming to Santa Fe. So glad to have the New England spring connection this morning. We're beginning spring here in Santa Fe. Also, you can see the cherry blossoms outside Elizabeth's window, and it gets hot a little bit more quickly here sometimes. So it sounds like you all have quite a bit of experience. And so we'll go through just our basic meditation instruction this morning. I'll probably spend a little bit less time on the preliminaries, as you all seem to already have some stable seats, but I will go through it, and then we'll go through a guided meditation, and we'll have an opportunity for question and answers. And it sounds like Joseph and Jenny in particular are working with particular stuff, and so there will be an opportunity to ask about that and inquire about that, and as Catherine noted, to share our experience, which is a beautiful way for us to be together. So I'll start with a moment of speaking about space. So when we're at home, it's wonderful to dedicate a consistent space for our sitting practice, a quiet space. It can be nice to set up an altar with some kind of images of who or what inspires us to practice. And at our altars here at Upaya, you can see one behind me. We also always have the 4 elements on the altar: fire, earth, water, and space. And space for us is often represented by our flowers. And that is a way to acknowledge, as Ed was talking about, the natural world, and those things that we are components of and are components of us. And once we've set up our space, we can find our seat. And here we usually talk about, for seated meditation, sitting on a chair, on a bench, or a cushion. No matter what we're sitting on, we want to establish a stable base. And for me, I often think about having 3 points of support. So my butt is on one surface, and then if I'm on a chair, having both my feet on the ground, or if I'm sitting in a way that ideally allows both my knees to touch the ground. And a lot of our Zen ancestors spend a lot of time talking about finding our seat, and that being just, this physical embodiment of stability. If we're sitting on a bench, kneeling in the seiza position, one thing I've found that can be helpful is to just play with how far apart my legs are when I'm sitting on the bench. And sometimes a little bit wider feels more stable, and sometimes a little bit narrower. So just if you're sitting on a bench, something that you can experiment with and also allow to change all the time. For me, especially going into session, allowing myself to change my seat if I'm experiencing some pain or experiencing some restlessness, can be a wonderful way to support our sitting practice. If we're sitting on a cushion, we also often talk about 4 different positionings for our legs. The way the laptop is set up and the fact that I'm wearing robes means I can't really show you my legs. But using my arms, one is the easy posture, the cross-legged posture, where we kind of have our legs tucked like this. This is not always the most stable seat, often because there's a foot underneath a knee. But if that is a supportive way for you to sit, by all means, please sit that way. The second posture is the Burmese posture, where we have one leg in front of the other. And often if the heels of my hands are the heels of my feet, the heels are aligned towards the middle of the body. This allows our legs to open wide and our knees to fall down to the floor. And then we have the lotus positions. And those who are yogis are familiar with those, where we have one leg, either one leg or 2 legs propped up on the opposing thighs. What Kodo calls the quarter lotus, because it's not half lotus, posture is where we actually have, if this is a foot propped up on the calf of the leg that is folded underneath. This is the way I sit. Half lotus would be having the foot fully up on the thigh, and full lotus is both legs tucked. As I mentioned, no matter how we're sitting, I have found especially not to get attached to the way that I am sitting, to be responsive to my body. And as I said, one way to do that is to change position, and another way to do that is to change the height. So we're lucky enough here in the Zendo to have more zafus than we know what to do with. And so sometimes sitting on a single zafu, but sometimes piling them up, again, especially as we're sitting for longer periods, to take pressure off the knees, can support our sitting practice. Once we've established a stable seat, a stable base, then we can attend to our posture. And our posture should be erect with a neutral spine, but not uptight, as I sometimes do, and find my shoulders up at my ears. So we want to be relaxed, allowing a natural curve to our spine. And for me, often this image of allowing my belly to be soft and almost hanging over my belt, my waistline, and allowing that natural curve in my lower back, and also just this little bit of tilt forward, which actually isn't a tilt forward, but can just feel that way. Moving from our lower back and spine, our shoulders are relaxed, our arms are relaxed, and our hands are in the cosmic mudra. And so our right hand is placed flat on the bottom. Our left hand is placed on our right hand. And you can see the fingertips on one hand are aligned. My middle fingertip is aligned right with my middle knuckle. That's held flat.
Here's what I found.
Siri's talking to me. That's held flat. And then our thumbs are gently touching. And the instruction here that I love is there's enough pressure that if somebody slipped a piece of paper between your thumbs, you could hold it, but not so much that someone couldn't slide in like this index card right here, right in between your thumbs. So we have the cosmic mudra, and that's seated, that's set on our laps. And sometimes, the level is that of our hara, our lower belly, For me, that means my thumbs are about even with my belly button. And watching the height of our mudra can be skillful in that sometimes we get a lot of pain and our mudra starts to creep up with our arms. And so relaxing it back down, but also not having it so low that we're kind of droopy and inattentive. It can help, really watching that during our sit can help us have some kind of physical indication of where our mind is. And the energetic quality of our mind. Our face is relaxed. Our eyes are open, but the slightest amount. I like to close my eyes first and then open them just so that I can see the ground about 2 to 3 feet in front of me with a relaxed gaze. And I'll often find a point on the floor which feels like, it's in a comfortable position for my head. Look at it for a moment and then allow my gaze to soften and allow myself to attune to the periphery, everything that's in my visual field without focusing on anything in particular. And the head, it's one of the things that's been great about, for me at least, being on Zoom more, is I realized I'm often kind of this way, a little bit tipped to the side. So our head is, our chin is tucked the slightest bit, like there's a string from the top of our head pulling us up. And you can feel kind of this length through the back of the neck. It's not shoved into a triple chin, and it's not jutted out. Often if our chin or neck is jutted out, our posture is collapsing. So we feel this line from our seat up through the top of our head. And once we adjust all of this, we kind of feel that infrastructure, and I forget which fascicle Dogen talks about it. He says, then you sit like an old dog. So you just kind of relax. You've set this whole beautiful structure, and then you just relax and melt around it. So that's seat and posture. Before we begin a meditation, are there any questions? Anything that you've been struggling with related to that? My sound was getting adjusted. Okay. If no questions right now, let's go into about 10 minutes of guided meditation. So it looks like you've all found your seat, but just when we arrive on our chair or our cushion, settling into the seat, finding our posture. And in Fukan Zazengi, his fascicle on recommending Zazen, Dogen talks about rocking a little bit once we sit. And I really love this practice. So rocking side to side, and then forward to back, and just finding that place on our, where our body that day feels centered. And once we've found our posture, we can then settle into our body. And so for me, as soon as I sit and find my posture, I inhale and I think about the inhale, just drawing my attention into the center of my body from wherever it is. Just inhaling, bringing it in, And then exhaling, allowing myself to drop into the seat. Inhaling, collecting my attention. And exhaling, allowing it to drop deep into my body. One more time, inhaling, collecting my attention and my energy. And exhaling it, allowing it to drop into my seat. And this is a moment where I have some information about how chaotic I am at that moment. And that information, informs my practice, and informs how I'll sit that day. Once we've settled the body, we then move to recalling our intention. So why are we really sitting? Why are we really sitting this morning, this moment? And Roshi always talks about setting some kind of altruistic intention. And this actually has become great fun for me. I allow my intention to change and shift with whatever's resonating with me in my practice at that moment. And so perhaps setting the intention, may I awaken. May I be generous, so that I may truly serve, or for the peace and liberation of all beings. And so finding some intention, of how I aspire to be, so that I may truly serve, truly benefit all beings. And once we've set that intention, calling to mind a loved one or a situation where there is suffering, and allowing that moment, that suffering, just to be with us, and holding it gently and warmly. And in that moment, we don't have to try to feel anything. What I have found is when we recall, a loved one or a situation where there is suffering, and we hold it kind of warmly and gently, this natural feeling of compassion, of wanting to reach out a hand, can arise. And if it doesn't at that moment, that's fine too. We come back the next day and we recall that intention, and we recall that situation one more time. And then we can set, after we've sat with that for a moment, really allowed that feeling to kind of fill us, we allow it to fade. And we recall our intention for that sitting period. How are we going to practice today? And today I'll speak about, there's many practices. At Upaya, we, in this instruction, begin with awareness of our breath. And this is also kind of my anchor practice. And so perhaps today we say, my intention today is awareness of my breathing. And then we turn to that practice. And so for awareness of our breathing, we'll return to the sensations of the breath in our body. In the Satipatthana Sutta, Shakyamuni has this beautiful instruction that I've been working with. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. And for a couple breaths, we just sit with that. Breathing in, I know that I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I am breathing out. And for me, that's not an intellectual knowing. That's a knowing that comes from feeling the sensations of the breath in our bodies. And we often invite people to feel the sensations of the breath in the hara, in the lower belly, and feeling as we breathe in, the expansion down into the lower belly. And as we breathe out, the lightness in the lower belly. And then we continue to sit with the sensations in the body of our breathing. Another instruction from the Satipatthana Sutta that I love, which Thich Nhat Hanh also teaches, is breathing in a long breath. I know I am breathing in a long breath. Breathing in a short breath, I know that I am breathing in a short breath. And for me, this is an encouragement to stay with the sensations in my body of my breathing throughout the duration of the breath. And perhaps once we've established a relationship to the physical sensations of our breathing in our bodies, we can begin a counting process, counting our breaths. And counting my breath, for me, to Joseph's statement about feeling in a chaotic place, this is a place where I've found incredible settling. And I've had a mixed relationship with counting my breath, to be honest, over time. But especially when there's a lot coming up, having this simple instruction, this simple task has allowed me to relax around my meditation process or my meditation practice. And so to count our breaths, we'll breathe in naturally, breathe out. And at the bottom of our breath, we'll simply note 1. And breathe in and breathe out again. And at the end of the next breath, note 2. And we want to keep the counting a kind of minimal, a minimal thing. It's just there as an anchor. It's just there as this periodic reminder that really we're aware of our breathing, not aware of the counting. We're aware of our breathing, but the counting helps give us an anchor as we begin our meditation. Give us something to come back to. Gives our minds something to do, so it doesn't get quite too wily in the beginning. And as we breathe, we'll count from 1 to 10. And once we reach 10, we just return to 1. And continue that. 1 to 10, back to 1. And when we find our mind inevitably wandering, we can check in and see if we know what number we're on. Sometimes I end up at 25. Sometimes I have no idea. And that's wonderful. We realize in that moment, we've woken up to where we are right now. We've woken up to the fact that we're at 25 and we were supposed to stop at 10. And then we just go back to 1, no problem, and begin again. And we may continue with counting through the duration of our sitting period. If we're feeling more attentionally and emotionally stable, we may let the counting go and just stay with the sensations of our breath in our body. And if we're feeling in a particular sitting period some level of stability with that, it can be nice at some point, especially towards the end of meditation, to see what it feels like to then let go of any object of attention. This is shikantaza, or just sitting, or open awareness, where we're just, we're fully present, open and receptive to our field of awareness, and allowing whatever arises to arise, and allowing it to pass in its time. And if we find ourselves really taken with something, the sound of a well being drilled outside of the zendo, for instance, and we find ourselves wrapped up in a story about that, we let that go. We can come back to the awareness of our breathing, resettle ourselves, and then perhaps allow our awareness to open once again. And at the end of our sitting practice, often for me here in the zendo, it's with the sound of the final bell, the single bell that happens at the end of the sitting period. We dedicate the merit of our practice. And really, it's an act of generosity, of giving. We give away any good that has accrued, any goodness that has accrued during that period of sitting. We give it away, perhaps to those who are suffering, who we recalled when setting our intention, perhaps to all beings. But for me, this dedication of merit, it's really about finding this feeling of, whatever's been generated, giving it away for the benefit of others. What does that feel like? And that gift is the end of our sitting practice. Are there any questions or specific challenges or things that you're working with that you'd like to ask about? Catherine.
With spring, I'm starting to get my the urge to be outside all the time. And I'm a painter, so this time of year I put together my kits for painting outside. So when we finished our on cushion practice in the morning, my work around the home has really been in my studio, putting those things together. And as I do that, I'm completely with it, what I'm doing. And there seems to be no division between what's happening, the how I'm doing, whatever I'm doing, and that. So my question really is what's the difference? I mean, practice is practice. We're doing now in this session, this really intensive on the cushion work. Could you speak to that? The merits of one versus the other, or is there a versus involved?
I can say for me, there's no verses. The different practices that we have and the different fields that we work in, for me, support one another and open up new aspects of the field of practice. So I'll give you an example. For a year and a half, was the head of kitchen here. And especially during session and practice period, there's a lot that's happening in the kitchen. And it was so easy for me to go from my body right up into my brain, because I'm thinking about what everyone is doing and where the next meal is. And so during those periods, my sitting practice really supports me in coming back into my body. And that then, as you were just speaking to, can translate, it can set the tone for me. It can set the tone for the whole day. This kind of awareness and groundedness. On the other hand, there's times where I'm sitting a lot and my sitting practice can feel quite sluggish. I just feel like, oh gosh, I have been sitting all the time. And so mindful work, samu practice, being up and moving, can be a way to, in a way, it energizes my sitting practice. And so for me, all these things, samu practice, work practice, walking meditation, going up here into the mountains and having a hike in noble silence. Our whole life is our practice. And for me, each of these ways that we are with it, allow me to touch aspects of the practice a little bit more easily, being in nature. And as Ed was speaking about, opening to the interconnectedness that's so much bigger than me or the Upaya residents or the Zendo or the cloud Zendo. Wow, sometimes blows my mind, and then that stays with me when I come back into the Zendo. So I really feel them as mutually complementary, as mutually reinforcing, and often, have some awareness of what is going to support me in this moment in my practice. Maybe I need to get outside a little bit more. Maybe I need to sit outside. The Buddha said, find a quiet tree and sit under it. And during the warmer months here at Upaya, often our noontime sit, we'll sit outside. So it's a beautiful practice as well. Other questions? Joseph.
Yeah, so this time I noticed that there was less chaos.
Hmm.
And being Mr. Brainiac, I think that has to do with the fact that your voice was there. When I
Hmm.
sit, normally when practice period isn't underway, I sit every day with you at 7,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
there is no voice guiding. And that's when I am simply it's just chaos and scenes unfolding in my head. I'm in the scenes. It just goes on and on and on.
Hmm.
So it must be, well, it must be. I'm wondering if this is pointing to the fact that for me at this point, I've only been meditating for about, is it 4 years now, I think.
Hmm.
Perhaps having music or something to focus my mind. Because even when I sit during practice period with all of you, it's simply chaos in my head because there
Hmm.
isn't a voice saying, do this, do that,
Hmm.
then do this, then do that. And I
Hmm.
simply am just floating in endless stuff. So I'm wondering if my read on this is correct. Maybe I need something in the background, soft music or something to sort of to replace what your voice just did, which is to keep me sort of centered and here. Or maybe there's something else I need to attend to. I don't know. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
I'm looking at Sensei Kodo.
Oh,
I'm giving my answer. I'm about to give my answer. I don't know if this is Upaya sanctioned, but here it is.
yeah.
Um, so my the first piece of that is there's many wonderful guided meditations by teachers that that could be beneficial to listen to. Music to me is a little bit tricky because for me, music can take me out of my body. And one of the things that we're trying to do or aiming for during meditation is to stay in our bodies. And in fact, for me, quelling the chaos is actually about going more deeply into my body. When sitting is chaotic for me, I have found it's because I'm not fully anchored in my body, in the sensations in my body. And so if you do, if listening to a voice is supportive and someone coming back, one thing you could try is finding some loosely guided meditations in all sorts of traditions. Whatever's breath awareness is a beautiful one. Body awareness is a beautiful one. Just people who are bringing us back. I at a point in my life did John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness-based stress reduction program and his body scan. He has a 45-minute body scan where he just talks you gently through the whole body. So that might be a way to support your practice right now. And to me, there's also something to just being with the chaos. Just like Elizabeth talking about the spring and Sensei Shinzan's opening discussion about seasons last night in session, our sitting practice goes through seasons too. And sometimes that is a season of chaos. And For me, also being someone who's can be intellectually driven and wants to troubleshoot and fix it, actually allowing it to be no problem. Sitting down every day with the intention of being in my seat and being in my body and allowing whatever happens to happen. And just saying, that was today. I'm still in the season of chaos. And during that time, as I was saying, with that chaos, finding and just coming back to my body again and again, coming back to the sensation of my breathing again and again. And there's something to me quite robust about going through those periods, allowing them to be and finding a way back home where we already are already again and again, and just letting that be the practice for a while, being in the chaos and remembering as best I can to be right here in my body.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm looking at the time and wondering if there's any closing questions before we end this period together.
Oh, I just
And-
wanted to say thank you. It was really nice. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thank you all. Thank you for being with me and Sensei Kodo in the background this morning. Thank you for joining us for spring practice period and session. And looking forward to having you in the Zendo with us over the coming days as much as you're able. Thank you so much.